Hey, you guys, time for another movie retrospective. It's raining outside. We got some pumpkin bread in the oven.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a fucked up serial killer movie from 1986. This is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, starring Michael Rooker.
I saw it around the time where it came out. It was shocking at the time.
It was. Not so much nowadays, but it's still like a really good, disturbing kind of movie.
Yeah, it seemed very realistic back in those days, you know what I mean? Because the way it was edited,
and it was shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah, it just looked like a crime scene, fucking.
Yeah, it definitely has this snuff
video
film
or something
feel to it.
What's funny about it is that we know this case that about Henry Lee Lucas. We know it pretty well. We did a show on it. It's very fictionalized. It's nowhere near, the story is nowhere near what really happened. It's kind of a decent portrayal of what they were like, but what strikes you when you watch this movie is how good looking Michael Rooker is.
He was a good looking dude. He's still a good looking dude.
Well, of course,
I mean, he was quite young when this movie was made.
Of course he's good looking. He's from Alabama. And Alabama used to be part of Mississippi.
That doesn't follow.
No, Alabama used to be part of Mississippi. It broke off in the 1800s, but no, the real Henry Lee Lucas was fucking nasty. Same thing with Otis. And they left a lot out of the story.
Well, like I said, I think that even when they were first making this movie, basically the guy that wrote and directed it, John McNaughton, he just got interested in the Henry Lee Lucas case because he saw something better on 2020. But he said, I don't want to make like a movie that's like about him, but it's just like loosely based on him. Yeah. So it's not, so a lot of the details you can't really compare. Yes, they did use a lot of aspects of like their real lives and some characters, but they changed a lot too. So don't like watch this thinking it's like a biopic or anything that, because it's nothing like that. It's just like a separate story.
One of the things that they left out in the movie is that Otis was gay, and I would say Henry was bisexual.
Yeah.
And they had a thing going on, and then they had this 13-year-old girl who was like, way into Henry. But these dudes were fugly, though. I mean, they looked like fucking 4 generations of fucking half interbreeding and stuff, just... These dudes couldn't fucking function in society. That was one of the reasons why they went the way they went. And... they lied a lot. They were fucking pathological liars. They couldn't have done everything that they said, killed 600 people. No.
Yeah, wouldn't they have had... They would have had to travel like 11,000 miles in 1 month, like in this shitty old car, for them to have done all the murders that they...
Henry probably could be classified as in real life, he probably could be classified as a serial killer. I think he killed enough. But the only thing that Otis and Henry, I think, did together that they know for sure is that they robbed a gas station and killed at least one guy there. And they did eventually kill that girl. I think Henry eventually killed that girl.
Well, what ended up happening, and the thing about the movie, too, so in the movie, Henry Lee Lucas, lives with Otis, where I guess they met in prison, which, that's not exactly what happened. They actually met in Jacksonville. It wasn't in prison, but, and the girl, Becky, which her real name was Frida, but in real life she did go by Becky. In the movie, she's old enough to, she's 18, 19, 20, early 20s, something like that. Old enough to have a job and have a kid and stuff like that. In real life, she was 12, and she was actually Otis's niece. In the movie, she's his sister.
Right.
But he's incestuous toward her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But in reality, it was a niece.
Yeah.
And she was way underage.
Yeah, she was 12 when her and Henry met.
Yeah, and what's funny is that, the investigators, when they interview and all these people, actually she was mentally superior to Henry.
Even though she wasn't the brightest bulb either. Yeah, she had some mental impairment also.
Yeah, they were all fucked up, but she was actually the smartest one out of the bunch. She wasn't the leader per se, but I think she manipulated him a lot. They said that she was dominant in the relationship with Henry. Which is strange, you know what I mean? But when you see how kind of mentally fucked up they were, it kind of made sense.
Yeah, these were not quality individuals.
Henry was kind of pussy whipped, I guess you could say.
I mean, and the thing about it too was that now the shit that they say in the movie, because there's like one scene in the movie where Henry and Becky are like getting to know each other, and they did have like a romance thing in the movie, but like I said, in the movie she's much older than she was in real life, and some other shit was different too. But he says about his dad. His dad's getting his legs cut off, like when he was younger, which that did happen. Like his dad, I think although I think in the movie it said it was a truck accident, and I think that in real life I think he got him cut off like by a train or something like that.
I think didn't he fall asleep drunk on a train track?
Yeah, something like that.
Sleeping on train tracks.
And the stuff that he said in the movie about his mom being a prostitute and like making him watch, dressing him in women's clothing, that is supposedly true also. So the stuff that he says to Becky in the movie about his background, as far as they can determine, that is actually what his family life and upbringing was like. So like I said,
that's a serial killer genesis. He was a serial killer. It's just that I don't think I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if he killed 6 people.
I had to look up because he was eventually convicted of 11. 11. But from what I've seen, they don't know how many people he killed. They're pretty sure he killed 3. He did kill his mom, although not outright. Like what ended up happening was him and his mom had an argument, and he said that the mom hit him over the head with a broom handle, and then he said that, oh, I just like smacked her across the neck, except oops, I had a knife in my hand. Like, okay. And like kind of slit her throat, but she didn't die right away. Like somebody came home and found her, like called the ambulance and everything, but then she was dead by the time she got there because she'd had a heart attack, like from shock. So he was actually
so the cut didn't kill her.
Blamed,
a heart attack.
Yeah. So she was actually blamed for that.
Yeah.
And they suspect that he eventually ended up killing Becky. And also this woman that they were living with, like this old, like him and Becky like got this job looking after this old lady. Like she was in her 80s or something, and she was like bedridden. And they like, Henry got a job like working as a roofer or some shit. And then Becky was supposed to take care of the old lady. And they started like stealing from the old lady, like writing out checks and like forging her signature and shit like that. So they think that probably Henry killed that old woman too. Yeah. But those are pretty much the only 3 that they're completely certain of.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've looked at his case. But from what I remember, my reaction to the ones that he got convicted for, a lot of them, I remember it being really flimsy. You know what I mean?
The one
he would confess to stuff, but he confessed to everything.
He did.
He would confess to every fucking thing. So just because he got convicted of it didn't mean that he did.
The one that he was convicted of, I think, was the murder of Orange Socks, who they later identified. I think her name was Deborah Jackson. I wrote about her in my book, actually. And I'm not sure like how solid the evidence was for that.
Yeah.
He got in prison for a lot of, he did like attempted kidnapping, burglary, shit like that. So it wasn't just murders. Yeah. But for sure he did not do, like I said, I've seen the lowest, estimate I've seen is 3. Highest estimate I've seen like maybe 40, but most people are like, even that's a little
This dude, he didn't have the traits you had to be a real prolific serial killer. He just didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't intelligent enough. He wasn't good looking enough. He couldn't get people to trust him or get into a car with him. You know what I mean? What, you know, a serial killer has to have enough social I guess charisma, you know what I mean, to get
unless
at least
they just
prostitutes.
Unless they just kill prostitutes.
even they have pretty good senses about who's not to get in the damn car with. And if you look at those guys, you're like, oh, no thanks, because they don't look like they had a dime. You know what I mean?
True.
And you know what I mean. So they couldn't afford anything, you know. And just their faces and just how they looked, they were just super super sketchy looking. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, when you see these two guys together, it's like if you saw them like walking down the street towards you, you would like run screaming in the other direction, I mean, like anybody would.
A $10 crack whore would go, nah.
No thanks. Nah. I have standards.
I don't trust you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So that said, like, so don't watch this movie thinking that it's like a biopic or it's like anything. It uses some aspects of their crimes and their backgrounds and their life and stuff, but it's highly, highly fictionalized. And even, like I said, the director had said that he wanted to make something like fictional. Now, what ended up happening with this, like I said, this movie only cost like $110,000. What happened was that the guy that made it, John McNaughton, the director, he was just, I think this was like his first major directorial job, at least of like a fictional movie. He had made a couple of documentaries, and there were these producers, and they really liked his documentaries that he made. So they're like, okay, well, we got this financing to make like, another documentary. And they were going to make this one documentary, but all the shit fell through. Like, the people that they were supposed to, like, get the footage from were like, no, now we want, like, twice the amount of money, like, for that footage. And they were like, yeah, fuck you. So they basically still had the funding. So they said to John McNaughton, who just, like, he worked as, like, a delivery guy or something like that, like, for their business. And they were like, well, why don't you make a horror movie? You know what I mean? Because those are usually, like, a pretty safe bet. So as I said, John McNaughton had seen something about Henry Lee Lucas on 2020 and said, okay, well, I'll make a movie about a serial killer. Now, as I said, it seems like nowadays, this is one of those movies, kind of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where if you saw it a long time ago, because we watched it last night and I had not seen it for a really long time.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that thing
And in fact,
years.
I had forgotten that it was so old. It was actually shot in 1985, and it was released sort of in 1986, like to festivals and stuff, but it had such a hard time finding a distributor that it didn't really like seep its way into the public consciousness until like the late 80s, early 90s, like was when it got more of a wider release. Yeah. Because there was a bunch of shit with the MPAA. They wanted to give it an X, and then finally, like, when they came about with that NC-17 rating, this was one of the movies that kind of spurred because they're like, well, we need a rating that's, kids can't see it, but it's not a porno. You know what I mean? So it was this movie. I think it was Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down was another one, and The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. I think those were kind of the three that came out, like, right around the same time that spurred the creation of the NC-17 rating.
It's funny how I perceived this movie back in those days, and then I look at it now. It's not tame, but it's pretty tame.
By today's standards, sure. And that's what I was going to say. It's kind of like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where people remember it being a lot gorier
than it really was.
Than it really is. Yeah. I'm not saying this movie isn't disturbing.
It was more disturbing back then, though.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not well done, because it is. It's very well done. It's well acted, but it's not a gore fest.
No,
you know what I mean? It's like even the shit that's like disturbing. Like, I really like, if that's the right word to use, I really like the opening sequence of this, where they're basically showing Henry, played by Michael Rooker, just kind of going about his life, and they kind of made him sort of a nice dude, like, or not anyone you would suspect of being a serial killer. So he's just like going to a diner and like, leaving a tip and saying, oh, you have a nice smile to the waitress or whatever, and just being like really gentlemanly and shit. And then they intercut it with just kind of like crime scene or just shots of like his victims. And I like the way that the shots like linger on just like these dead women, just like laying like face down, like in a fucking thing with garbage going past. Like there's one of the really famous one that got cut out of a lot of prints of it was the one with the prostitute that he just killed, and he left her like on the toilet, like with her top all off, and she had like a bottle like stuffed into her mouth.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, so they just kind of like linger on these shots, and then, juxtaposing it with him just going about a normal day like he's a normal dude. And there's something like really creepy and like really effective about that, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I thought it was a good movie. The acting was good. The casting was good. The tone, the way it was shot, it really took me back to Michigan in the late 80s. The Rust Belt area looked like that. It was real shitty in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Shitty and broken down, shitty cars from the 70s that were falling apart, just rusting like fucking crazy. And it just kind of took me back to those days of way things used to look up in the Rust Belt. It's fucking, bad. I forgot. It was almost like the Soviet Union.
Yeah, it's like everything kind of looked like crap back then.
Crappy.
I'm not really sure. I mean, because obviously, the real Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole like kind of moved around a lot. This one, he kind of talks about that, like that's kind of his MO, like you can't use the same weapon all the time. You have to like keep moving around, like that's how he's not gotten caught for so long. But the movie just basically concentrates on him and Otis and Becky like being in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I guess they just like they just put it there because that's where John McNaughton was from, and that's where they could
probably
shoot.
just cheaper to film.
Right. So that's what so they just kind of like concentrated on this one.
The tone was really good. The action was good. practical special effects were good. I mean, you watch the movie, you buy it, especially the edit. But you know what I didn't notice? I didn't notice the first time that I saw it, and I noticed it this time, was the score. It's a really good, almost industrial score. It's almost like Skinny Puppy in certain, almost like a Skinny Puppy song in certain scenes. And you know, Hills Have Eyes had that kind of an industrial kind of a sound effect. It's just not really music, but noises. This one was noises turned into music, kind of like the way Skinny Puppy would do it. And I liked it.
I like too the way, like I said, when they did these long shots of the victims, like that are just very slow, just kind of like slowly panning back from like this horrible like scene of this dead woman, and then they would over the soundtrack, it would be like the sound of the crime occurring, but you're not seeing the crime occur. Yeah. You're just seeing the aftermath, but you're just hearing it. Yeah. And I thought that was a really, really good, technique.
It's a really good art flick.
Yeah.
Horror art flick about a serial killer. Kind of like in the way that Hills Have Eyes is a horror art flick. And so was Chainsaw Massacre. The first one was kind of like a horror art flick. It's like that.
Yeah, and this kind of definitely has that vibe, like I said, because it was made for very cheaply. It was made on 16 millimeter. There is also kind of a thing, like you said, there's just kind of this gritty, because I made a joke while we were watching it last night. I was like, oh, this is like Low Life's the movie, you know what I mean? Because it's like everyone is sketchy and gross and dirty and everything. And it's just like this underbelly of, you know, the seedy underbelly of all these people like in this city, like just being low lifes. And so there's something like really unsettling, I think, about seeing Henry as, you know, the main character who is obviously a monster, but then it's almost kind of like he's almost normal. You know what I mean? Like he can go about his life and he's just like doing regular shit. It's like, you know, him and Otis are just like, yeah, let's go get a beer or let's go to a bar or something like that. And then they just go to a parking lot and like pick up some prostitutes and then like break their necks. You know what I mean? And it's not, and it's the way that they react to it. It's just kind of like not that big a deal. And I think that's kind of what makes this creepier, is that it's just part of their everyday life and they don't really see.
Yeah, watching this one, I could really see how this movie influenced Natural Born Killers. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, big time.
It did that. What really stands out, though, for me, this movie is a Michael Rooker movie. He fucking sells this role. His acting is very good. Like I said before, I forgot how good looking he was.
Yeah.
He still is good looking. You know, I loved him in fucking as Merle Dixon. Just a super believable character. He's real tough looking in this. He's in good shape. He's got curly hair. And he's kind of fucking scuzzy and creepy. And Merle is more intense, more verbal version of this. You know what I mean? More normal, I would say. Merle is more kind of like a fucking Mississippi hardcore backwoods clan type guy, you know. And I think he's a great actor. You know, I've seen a lot of his movies. He was in that one. What was it called? Squirm. Remember? Was it called? No, it wasn't called Squirm.
No, he wasn't in Squirm.
It was the one with the aliens where they impregnate you, and you turn into a big.
Oh, right. Slither.
That's what it was. Yeah. And those little worms. He was in that. It was really good.
I think he was in Guardians of the Galaxy too, if I'm right.
Maybe he was.
Remembering.
I haven't seen all of his movies, but I like him as an actor. He's real good. And whenever he does interviews, he lets you know that he's a friendly guy and that this is not who he is. Because shit, man, fucking, he comes off as being fucking real mean.
Yeah.
Or sketchy as shit.
No, he's just a really good actor.
That's not how he is, though. He's a real funny, nice guy.
I kind of feel like that happens a lot. I feel like people that, like actors that kind of get into a thing of like playing a lot of villains or playing a lot of scuzzballs.
Yeah.
But usually if you meet them in person, they're like the nicest person ever. Maybe they're doing that to like overcompensate, or maybe they get like all their evil shit out like in the role. Yeah. And so then they can just be like a nice normal person the rest of the time instead of being a douche. I don't really know.
It's the same. It goes the same with that guy from Hills Have Eyes and Weird Science.
Yeah, Michael Berryman.
Yeah. Super nice guy. Weird looking. Yeah. But it's just a medical condition, you know what I mean? He's a real friendly, intelligent guy, you know. Real
sensitive. Yeah, I've heard like the same shit about like, you know.
Evidently women love him.
Like Robert Englund and people like that who kind of made their careers like playing serial killers or monsters or something like that. They're usually like super nice in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the thing about this too that I thought was really interesting is that they made like I said, they made the decision to make Henry more likable and more sympathetic than I'm sure he was in real life. I don't know. I never met the dude, but I'm just assuming. And you almost, even though you know he's a serial killer, you almost feel sorry for him because he almost seems like, I think that's interesting the way they set up the dynamic between him and Becky. And they had it be a little bit more normal than real life. Because like I said, in real life, she was way underage. So there was like nothing redeemable about that shit. But so she's like a normal age and she's like into him and like pursues him because she thinks he's really interesting. And he's very gentlemanly toward her because Otis, who in the movie is her brother, is like super creepy, like always talking about like her being a stripper and is like, hey, change your shirt and hey. And then like near the end of the movie, spoiler alert, Henry comes home and finds Otis raping his sister.
Yeah, and trying to kill her.
Like strangle her and stuff. And so that's kind of what causes like this big fucking rift. And again, in the movie, he kills Otis. Yeah. Which obviously did not happen in real life. And also, now he does kill Becky also in the movie, but, which did happen in real life. That, you know. But he left it different though. It's like, I think he killed her and the old lady at the same time, and I think he like just buried them together. Whereas,
I think Becky was 12 when she met
Henry. Yeah,
Henry, but
they were 15. She was 15 later, like when they
when all this shit started. I think she was like 14, 15. But like I said, when the FBI and the police were doing all the investigations, mentally she was older than than Henry was. Henry was mentally, both of them, and so was Otis. Otis could probably be, described as mentally incompetent.
Yeah.
And Henry was way below average in mental development. I remember what the investigators were just saying that, that Becky was kind of playing on both of those guys, kind of egging them on to do shit too. She was getting a big charge out of it, made her feel important. I think Henry possibly killed her because she was going to either leave or tell on him or something like that. There was some kind of falling out, and she knew too much about him, so he killed her.
Yeah, because I think they were defrauding that old lady that they were working for, like on their and I'm not saying I'm not like blaming the victim or anything like that because she was just a kid, and she probably had a super fucked up life too.
Yeah, these people we're talking about like 65, 70 IQ people. They're dumb, real dumb.
Yeah, and so I think it's like I really I had forgotten because even like we were talking about before with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I had forgotten I remembered the scene with the woman with the bottle in her mouth. I remembered the scene where he was cutting Otis's head off, like, and that he was dismembering the tub and then putting the head in the bag or whatever. And I remembered like the very famous scene where they filmed themselves like killing a whole family. And then they went up, and then they were just like sitting there on the couch, like a couple of bros, just like watching it over and over. Yeah. You know what I mean? And be like, I want to watch it again. Like it was so matter of fact. Yeah. I think that was what really disturbed people about this film is that just how normalized it was. Like for them, it was just like part of their fucking day. You know what I mean?
That's kind of the way it was for those guys that were running that damn torture chamber up there in the woods. What was his name? Freaking. There's the Chinese guy and the American guy.
Yeah, that's who I was just thinking
Charles
of.
Ning and Leonard Lake.
Yeah.
They were kind of like that. We
did a show about that.
I kind of think that case may have inspired some of the stuff in this.
Yeah, that
because they videotaped stuff and watched it. Henry Lee and Otis, they didn't videotape anything.
I don't think they could have figured out how a video camera could have
Leonard Lake
worked.
And Charles they did everything they could to get their hands on audiovisual equipment. It was real expensive back then.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to videotape everything that they were doing. They did videotape it.
Yeah.
I've seen parts of it.
I'm not going to sit there and watch the whole fucking shit.
It's out there, but probably be real hard to find. But it used to be on YouTube. You could find a few seconds of here and there stuff that it was mostly them talking to their captives. Wasn't anything, graphic. But it didn't even look real.
That's the
real
thing about
stuff
it.
Didn't even look real.
Because you're so used to of not seeing it. Like most people can go their whole entire lives without seeing shit like that.
It looked like people doing live action role play.
Yeah.
It looked like it was fake, to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the whole thing. They eventually kill him in there.
Yeah. And that was not fake because
that was real. Yeah, but it looked like they were all just playing along. And I think the girls were just playing along because I don't think they knew what was going to happen.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't. I mean,
right.
I can't imagine being in that situation.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck? How are you going to react? It's like maybe you're just trying to
make it through the next few minutes.
And you're just trying to placate them maybe because you think maybe they'll let you go, or maybe they're just fucking around or something like that. And because, you don't really believe you're going to get fucking in the clutches of a serial killer.
Right,
I mean, how often does that fucking happen? Yeah. So it's but yeah, so that's kind of an astute observation that maybe they did use Lake and Eng for the thing for that, because like you said, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole did not videotape anything.
No.
There's also another very famous scene in this too where they actually go because Otis gets pissed off and kicks in their TV like a dumbass. And then they have to go to some fence or something like that to get a new TV.
Yeah, stolen one.
A stolen one, that has this warehouse. And it's all they have is $50, and he's so trying to give him this little dinky black and white TV.
Yeah.
And then he gets all pissed off because they're no, we wanted something that was in color, and he's no, I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah, they're fighting over the
They have this big fucking fight,
yeah.
And then Henry just gets pissed off and he goes after him a soldering iron first, he sticks in his hand, right? And then just as the kind of coup de grace, he just kind of has to have the TV, and he smashes it on the fat guy's head, and then he's tells Otis to plug it in.
He goes, Otis, plug it in.
Electrocutes him.
It's kind of funny,
which was almost kind of funny, but kind of fucked up at the same time.
That scene kind of reminded me of something out of Natural Born Killers. Because it's kind of some of the homicides are funny in Natural Born Killers. That's kind of reminded me of that.
It's funny, but it's it's not
really, but
really. But you know what I mean.
They think it's funny, so they want you, the audience, to also think it was funny. Kind of what it felt like for them is what it was.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what. But yeah, so it's interesting to go back and see this movie again, because like I said, I probably saw this in maybe 1990, 1991, because like I said, it came out in 86 technically, even though it was made in 85, and it didn't really get a wide release until 1990, I don't think.
This is something you usually you rented it on VHS.
Yeah, I think I saw it on VHS or on HBO or something like that, and I think it was 91, because I think I was just out of high school, or maybe I was still in high school, I don't know, but so it was 90 or 91 that I saw it. And it was a movie that everybody was talking about. It's oh my God, this is so fucked up. You have to see it and everything like that. But, seeing it now, now that I'm old and jaded and I've seen, everybody nowadays has seen everything. We had the whole torture porn thing. We had the whole New French Extremity thing. We had the whole, where everybody has seen the most fucked up shit imaginable in movies. So this will probably seem very tame by comparison.
It doesn't stand out for the same reasons today as it stood out back then.
It did back then,
right.
Sure.
Today, you would see it as a pretty cool art film about a serial killer. You wouldn't see it as real overly horrible or anything. Even though horrible shit happens in it, you've seen worse than that in some of these other movies.
Yeah, because they don't... It's very...
Saw is much worse.
Yeah, well, and a Hostel, anything like that is...
Human Centipede, much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
like I said, some of those French movies, it's just ooh, okay, so you don't want to see that kind of... They do way more fucked up shit than we do. Yeah. But it's so I don't think that would be necessarily the reason to watch it. I think that...
You watch it for the acting, Michael Rooker, the story, and just kind of to give you the vibe of the way things were back then. It really did take me back. The tone is fucking great. It is.
It's really a time capsule.
It really does take you back in time.
A certain time and place.
It's kind of a creepy, cheap feeling when you're watching it.
Yeah, very snuff film-esque.
I remember it looking having even a greater cheap impact on me watching it on those old CRT televisions that they used to have, and lower resolution. It was even nastier looking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cheap feeling.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to. They're trying to let you know this is happening in a real low rent district.
Yeah, and it really does have that whole kind of stench about it.
Yeah.
This reminds me a little bit, too...
Fucked up furniture, fucked up wallpaper.
Yeah, everybody's got old, fucked up, rusty cars.
Yeah, fucking fucked up wood paneling on the walls, and it's just the way really cheap places looked in the 80s.
Everybody's just, sitting around in their fucking gross-ass underwear and, with beer and...
Yeah, all those old-fashioned bathrooms with the fucking porcelain tiles and all that fucking fixtures and shit. Stuff from the fucking 40s and the 50s that they put in there. It's all long gone now, in most places. Everything's renovated now.
Yeah.
But just cheap looking shit, man. Fucking. But I remember places looking like that.
Yeah, I do too.
And they fucking felt seedy. They did. You're sitting up there watching fucking Sally Jesse Raphael or fucking
whatever the hell it was he was watching.
Fucking going on back in the time, Geraldo.
But yeah, so I think that the impact that I think this was one of those movies that had a lot of impact like later on, just for being, and interestingly, a lot of critics like really dug this movie like when it came out. I mean, even Roger Ebert famously like thought this was a fucking brilliant film.
Yeah, it is.
And and I agree. I think it is as well.
It's our film, yeah.
Because he was saying it's not, because it's showing, because Roger Ebert didn't really like slasher movies, because he was saying, well, the violence is too glamorized or something like that. He's like, this does not do that. This actually shows what it would really be like to hang out with these fucking lowlifes that are just going around killing people just like it was a normal part of their day. And that makes it a lot more disturbing and, by extension, maybe a lot more responsible, because you're showing the shit the way it really is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I can kind of get that. I heard that they made a sequel to this. Michael Rooker was not in it. He didn't return. But I've heard that it's not too bad. So if... it wasn't like super exploitative or anything. It was kind of like the continuing, adventures of Henry and his serial killing career or whatever. I've heard it wasn't too bad. Another thing I've heard too is that I guess I was watching Sinister Reviews, who's this other guy like on YouTube that reviews a lot of horror movies. And I was watching his review of this, and he said that he started watching on Amazon Prime. And he's like, it's all fucked up on there. Like, the audio sounds terrible. It's like, and everything. But we watched it on Shudder. It's on Shudder. And it looks as good as it's supposed to look, which it's supposed to look like super scuzzy and like low rent and everything. And the audio is perfect. So if you're going to watch it on Shudder and not on Amazon Prime. I'm just like giving you that little pro tip right there. Also wanted to point out too that John McNaughton, the guy that directed this, didn't look like he did like a lot of work after, although... He did direct that movie Wild Things with Neve Campbell from the late 90s. Do you remember that movie? You'd probably remember if you saw it. I'm sure you probably saw it. And I thought
things like the kids' books?
No. Oh, okay. No, it was like a sex crime thing. What the fuck was it even about? I don't even remember what it was about. I remember seeing it, but because it had kind of all the 90s, it people in it. You know what I mean?
I don't remember it.
I think, what's her fucking name? Denise Richards or whatever that chick's name is. She was in it too, I think. Yeah. And also he directed one episode of Masters of Horror. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of the good ones. It was actually Heckle's Tale, which was based on a Clive Barker story. But not one of my favorite episodes. On the Masters of Horror are all on... Didn't you watch them the other day?
Yeah, I saw them on...
Are they on Tubi?
Yeah.
Are they on Shudder?
No, they were... I think they were on my Xbox somehow.
Oh, okay.
I had to buy them though.
Oh, you rented them? Okay.
Rented them, yeah. One episode's only like $1.
Because I think some of them were on Tubi, maybe just one season.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I remember watching them
for
free the other day.
I rented that Screw Fry Solutions.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was $1.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So you could just get one, because they're only like an hour long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you have Shudder and you have not seen Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, like I said, don't expect a gore fest, but it is like a pretty disturbing movie, particularly for the time.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a really, really good film. Michael Rooker is great in it. Like, all the acting is great in it. Like, everyone is super creepy and scuzzy, and it will make you want to take a shower.
Yeah, this one put Rooker on the map.
It really did. Yeah, I think this was... I don't know if this was his first role, but it's for sure one of his... I'd forgotten how young he was. Because, like I said, for some reason, I thought this movie was...
He had a tough-looking face.
Yeah.
And curly hair and stuff. And he was... But he... It's just funny. I didn't remember him as being a good-looking guy. It's because it is the movie at the time fucking just scared me. But I think this actually kind of typecast him towards villain roles.
He's so good at them, though.
He's real good at them, but he didn't have to be. I mean, he also could have gone along the lines of, say, like, Die Hard, with fucking Bruce Willis. He could have been a Bruce Willis kind of guy, too.
Oh, yeah, I would have liked to see that, actually.
Yeah. He could have done some heroic stuff, too. It was just that he was just so good at this, is that this is the direction he went. And I think Merle, the Merle Dixon role. Fucking, you know what I mean? That was like the magnum opus right there.
Well, yeah. Hard to top Merle. He was something else.
Merle's the shit, man.
Well, I will say I'm not an actor, but from what I know of actors, they always say that playing bad guys is way more interesting than playing good guys. Well, because there's so much more like you can fucking do with it.
That was one of the best characters on the fucking early Walking Dead.
Yeah.
One of the best characters right there.
Yeah.
He was very believable. I think he was every bit as good as Daryl.
Yeah.
I mean, they were very different. One was good and one was bad, but they were both super interesting characters. I liked them both.
Yeah, I did as well. So anyway, if you have Shudder, check out Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer for your disturbing, not a fun watch, but it's a really good movie, and I would definitely recommend it for horror fans. And that'll do it for this movie retrospective. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.